Right, welcome to the FP&AI podcast, where finance meets the future. I'm Roger Knocker, I'm your host, and I recently recorded a conversation with Andrew Brown, a leadership coach who I've known for more than 20 years. And Andrew isn't just another consultant. In fact, we met on a church project, and then he was a supplier and I was a client, and then I was the client and he was a supplier. We changed roles because we both moved on. And he's also been a colleague. So we worked in the same company. We sat in offices adjacent to each other, and we got to know each other in the workplace. So Andrew comes with a BCom and an MBA, and he's done his time at Accenture in an international manufacturing firm, and then various companies in the medical technical field, the tech space in the medical field, medical industry. And he brings a sharp, unfiltered lens on leadership and change and strategy and process and data and everything. So he's an all-rounder. And this episode I've titled Driver-Based Models, Strategic Finance and Staying Relevant. And in this conversation, we explore why driver-based models are essential for forecasting and better decision-making. That was the first part. And then how finance teams can remain relevant by being true business partners. We circle back to the conversation we had in part one. And then there are 3 killer skills that every finance professional should develop to thrive in the future. And I put Andrew a little bit on the spot there and asked him what are the things that most finance professionals need. And he thought for a while, and he came up with these 3 things on the fly. So if you haven't heard episode 1 or 2, no problem. Stay with us episode 3. And then obviously if you enjoyed, go back and listen to part 1 and part 2 and the earlier discussions that we had. Enjoy this episode.
So it gets back to this question of, how does the financial capability of an organization enable innovation, future thinking, getting into that mindset? I mean, that's really what we were trying to talk about.
Yes.
And I'm thinking that actually this younger generation, maybe they're going to solve for that. But
Could go the other way.
But it could go the other way.
They might throw their hands up and say, I just can't deal. How am I going to, it's taking my job. It could go.
We'll WhatsApp you the results.
I can see some let's not talk about some mindsets are going to give up and some are going to embrace it. I think that's going to be true.
Yeah.
Has to be.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, so much of this is about, and that's why I tend to come in and working with various teams in terms of this whole idea of, what are we trying to achieve and what do we need? What capability do we need in order to achieve that over there? And often it is things like we need financial modeling. We need people who are able to do proper business cases and put the level of thinking. I mean, they talk about, how many projects fail, and large projects in organizations, or this sort of product developments, this big thing about, we're going to conceptualize an idea, we're going to go through ideation, and we're going to come up with, the user stories, and we're going to create stuff. But how much time, and that's wonderful, and it all has to happen, but how much time is actually spent on the underlying thing? What's it going to cost? What's this going to generate? Who's going to buy it? And how is that modeled? And I think the financial community can add so much expertise, richness, and also kind of, we talked about they can be Dr. No type thing, okay? But the element of, if you don't have people interrogating the numbers, particularly, the product people and the sales people are always looking for the silver lining. They are always optimistic. The glass is always half full, which is lovely because they bring energy and excitement. But you also need people who are going to say, I get this, I understand it, but let's model it. Not say no, but let's model it in such a way that we can come up with something that makes sense, that we can back, that when we go to the shareholders and say, hey, we need X number of million rands worth of investment, this is what underpins it, and we can actually believe these numbers. And that to me is where the financial department can really help.
And this is where many of us finance professionals make a mistake, is that we don't build those models with drivers and assumptions and so there's two ways of doing it. Think of a spreadsheet. Let's say you've got a plan, income and expense, typical budget. You can go in and stick the number in, and at the end of the day say that's the budget, right? That's one way of doing it. Or you can do a driver-based model where you say, hey, it's so many products, this is the quantity, these are the prices, this is how it rolls up. When I look at my employee expenses, these are the people, these are their grades, these are their salaries, this is when they're getting promotions. We call them drivers. And if you multiply all of those drivers on top of each other, you can populate that same spreadsheet with a number. But many accountants still go with just getting the number. They do maybe back of a cigarette box calculations, but that's the discipline that I think would add a lot of value. And the business can understand those drivers. They don't always understand how you arrived at that number, but they understand, hey, I've got 3 people in my department and they each earn the salary they each get. People understand that stuff. The sales people understand, hey, I've got these products, these customers, this is the quantity, this is the price, this is the market. I understand that. So as finance professionals, we need to also help the business build these models in their language and then get the numbers out from it.
Exactly.
And we don't always do it. We just somehow get to the number. Nobody knows how we got there.
Yeah, and often it's kind of left to somebody in the sort of strategy department, business development department, probably got an MBA, so understands how to use Excel. I mean, what's that joke? More fiction has been written in Excel than in Word. No?
I haven't heard that one.
Have you not heard that one? Yeah.
That's good.
And it's to do with financial models being created, and you can make the things sing and dance and do beautiful numbers at the end and wonderful ROIs, but it's underpinned by rubbish. And I think that's where, if the financial people could really get to grips with that and help these business people produce stuff that's not, there are always assumptions, get it. But at least the assumptions need to be brought to the fore.
And discussed and aligned. Everyone can align to those assumptions. You can't align to that number at the end.
Exactly.
That has got no build-up.
Yeah. And then sort of bringing their expertise and understanding of how these numbers work, and as I say, what the drivers are, and actually coming up with stuff that is at least a good approximation of what the truth will be.
What I always say is you've got to have a plan in life, in business. If you've got a bad plan, you're going to get big variances quite quickly, and you're going to wake up one day and say, hey, I've got a bad plan, I better get a new plan. So either way, a plan's a great idea. It either confirms what you thought, or it shouts at you and says, no, this isn't working.
Exactly.
So,
which, once again, the financial guys can help in terms of keeping on track of where's your... because so often, you think about it, you create a vision for an organization or a project, whatever, it's something out there, and you're over here now, and you've got to navigate a path to there, and you don't know exactly how that's going to work, it's going to meander a bit. And being able to, I always talk about this idea, you can't steer a vehicle that's not moving. You need to be moving in some sort of a direction. But if you're getting continual feedback on where are you moving towards your plan and what's working and what's not, and then you can adjust accordingly. And being able to have that, like the worm we were talking about earlier, just those kind of metrics in real time.
High resolution.
Yeah, and not a month ago stuff. We need stuff almost like daily, weekly, to help make those adjustments, those small little adjustments of the steering wheel, so that we can get to this kind of objective and do it in a way that is not going to, it doesn't cost too much energy, because we're heading in the wrong direction and we have to course correct in a major way.
Let's talk about month end. And you're running a business, but you've been a senior executive in businesses, corporate. What irritates you about sort of that month end and the delay to get that financial information? What, as a general manager or as a CEO or COO, what is acceptable in terms of the duration? Like if it comes a week later, or 2 weeks later, or 3 weeks later.
No, that's not good enough.
So what would your expectation be?
Literally days.
Okay, why do you?
It's particularly,
I mean,
the last business that I was responsible for, because it was a run rate business, and knowing, what cash has been brought in. Is the cash flow component of it, but also because it was affected by seasonality, because it was, and also just the pressure of the organization higher up asking for numbers, because, if you've got a large corporate and there are many divisions, bringing in the pressure from the central financial department wanting the numbers really quickly because they've got to report up to the board, is also another key thing. But just from a purely operational perspective, being able to know how close are we to budget, where did we drop the ball, being able to know why we dropped the ball, because one, to be able to report, the accountability thing, but the other thing is, how do we do a course change and change in direction if we only know 3 weeks later what happened 5 weeks ago?
It's chaos.
How do I correct for that? I can't. I can't respond.
Yeah.
Whereas if I know that there is an issue in a certain area or a certain geography or at a certain key customer, then I can go and do something about it.
So what's your walkaway number in days?
I'd say like 3 or 4 days.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies are doing 2 weeks, 3 weeks still.
No, and I'm currently working with a small IT company, and they've got this problem of the 3-week thing, and they don't understand their cash flow. And they can't make decisions. They feel, I'm working with these 2 directors who are running the organization, and they feel like they are driving blind. They're in a car at night with no headlights. They just don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
And the impact on them as individuals is it stresses them out beyond measure, because they don't know if they're going to be able to afford to pay salaries. So the stress level, just for their peace of mind, if they could close off in a week and actually know, this is what's happened, this is how profitable this is what we can do, this is what we can spend money on. Because they've almost got there's this pressure of, you've got to sign off and do this payment, and that payment, but what money came in. So the cash flow for them is huge, massive. And I can understand, I see the stress. And the impact it has on, because they get so stressed by this, the impact that their stress levels has on the rest of the team is quite profound, because they lead the company. It's a small company. And if they're not happy, everyone's not happy.
Yeah.
And we can argue, yes, well, they shouldn't, let their kind of emotions and stuff, but they are just human in the end. And actually, this is a fixable problem.
Yeah.
And if the finance function could get it out sooner, they would be happier people, and they'd be able to run their company better.
So here's a shout out to Profit First. I don't know if you've heard of Profit First, but it's a cash flow management system for small businesses. And I would recommend that they look into that. It's a game changer. It will solve that problem.
Okay.
Right. What we're trying to do in this session, you're a leadership coach, I'm representing finance. We're chatting about a whole lot of stuff. We're trying to find out what finance does well and what they don't do well. We've touched on probably about 4 or 5 things already.
Aspects of it, yeah.
Aspects. Let me raise one that I find hard, like what I don't like. We spoke about looking at the accounts. What frustrates me when the accountants come, they present the income statement, balance sheet, and they can tell you how much the web services cost. They can tell you how much the salaries were. They've got all the debits and credits for you. They can tell you all the categories. This one's gone up. They can't. It frustrates me when they can't tell you why we got to that position. Do you know what I'm saying? This was the activity, and there was downtime and that, and this caused that. There was rework there, and therefore, the income statement is telling us the story. Many of us are disconnected from
the business,
from
the
the
operations.
business. And I'm trying to explain it in simple terms.
Yes.
But Bob, and then they were on the bench for 4 weeks, and then there was rework, and then this customer came for a whatever, a freebie, and they don't. That part of the story is missing.
Yeah. So.
And that CFO that you were talking about, let's call him Bob, he would know that's why the numbers look the way they look.
Exactly. But I think here we're talking actually more of a cultural thing. So if you got a very sort of functionally siloed organization, which is how a lot of organizations tend to work. So there's HR, and then there's finance, and then there's IT, and there's sales and whatnot. And actually there's not a huge amount of communication, effective communication, but collaboration across functions in order to deliver. And my feeling is that finance shouldn't be sitting off on the side as a sort of staff function. My feeling is that they should be integrally part of the value chain of delivering from we've sold something to we've had to manufacture it or develop it, we rolled it out or we delivered it, and then we have to collect it and we have to bill it and we have to collect it. And there is a continuum there. And they should be understanding from the start through to the finish that entire chain and being part of that and being supported through every single function.
So
and
the root
part
cause,
of the collaboration and part of the collaboration. So often the root cause, I think, is this kind of almost siloed culture.
They're sitting on the side and crunching
very
the numbers.
much finance is put on the side there. Yeah.
Is that the finance's responsibility to say, hey, I need to get involved in here? Or
yes.
Should the business be inviting them? Has that finance please come in and come to my meetings?
I think they need to insert themselves in. It's like HR as well.
Yeah.
HR can either be doing transactional stuff, we do payroll and leave, okay, and then the odd disciplinary thing, or we're here to ensure that we are enabling the most important asset in your organization from a capability perspective and making sure that we're working with you, the managers, to keep this asset happy, aligned, and engaged.
Let's do an IT version.
So very different discussion that in terms of the HR function.
Let's just go off the road a little bit. IT, we described the finance and HR being that siloed. How would that play out in an IT department?
IT department or an IT company?
An IT department where they're either that off to the side or they're engaged in the business. How would that look? Do you understand?
100%.
Are there IT departments that hide behind the help desk and
yes, but if you think about the idea of IT, the concept of like the project manager, product owner concept in the sort of broader sort of Scrum agile world, okay, the agile world, IT should have people like a product manager role who's is part of the business, understanding how business is working, their processes and how they can enable, and they bring this back to the product owner, the developers, the BAs or whoever, in order to design systems that then deliver and make those functions more efficient. So they're there to do that translation between business needs to work, but it can't be, you ring, we bring.
We haven't seen you for a while.
We haven't seen you for a while, and then complain about the one-line business requirement that's just come through, because often business doesn't know exactly what they need, and to me, the IT department needs to be there in there.
So IT, finance, HR. I mean, those are the three big departments.
You can't be on the
side in the ivory tower and crunching your numbers and
no,
fixing the data center.
No, I think you make yourself irrelevant. I really do. And I think those three departments have so much value that they can add. Because it's tough being in operations and delivering. I mean, that's when you're at the coalface, it's like that's where it's really happening. And the interaction with the customer is hard. Customers are demanding. So what are you doing to make sure that those people have the best of the information, people and systems in order to deliver on that?
And a good operational person values those three things. They welcome them. They want the finance person to help them cost and They want the HR person to help them coach their people and solve people and engagement issues.
Yeah.
And they want the IT person to be there helping them automate their processes and getting information.
Exactly.
So it's a win-win.
I think so. But but integrating across teams is very difficult. I mean, the classic fight in any organization is sales versus operations. Right?
But we've got S&OP now, so. So I ran a session with the finance department. We were setting up KPIs and OKRs. It was new to them, and I was trying to facilitate. And I'm always trying to push for hard, leading edge stuff. Pushing the KPIs or the OKRs, whichever we were going, with the finance department. But I couldn't get them. What I was testing or suggesting as a facilitator, you throw some ideas. They were lost for KPIs, and I said, well, what about measuring profit? Holding on your scorecard, finance's scorecard, there'll be a KPI that says profit margin. No, we can't do that. So I said, no, but what I'm asking is, you're part of this business. You're all in it to make profit together. One of your KPIs could be profit percentage or profit value. No, that's business. We can do the transactions, we can write the reports, we can show them the data, but don't hold us accountable for the profit. That can't be one of our KPIs. Give it to those guys. What do you think of that?
That's creating that silo mentality. It means that we're not in this together. It's a bit like saying, if we're a sports team, and if you're the fullback in the rugby team, I only catch the ball. But if the lock is charging towards me, he's very big. That's not my job to tackle. Somebody else must do that because
I'm too small.
I'm too small. Yeah. It's a bit like there's an element of when it comes to something as fundamental as profit in an organization, we're all in this together. That 15-man squad of the rugby teams, look at our Springboks, the score at the end of the game, everybody owns that
Even
score.
The physio?
Yes. And in fact, that's what's actually so incredible about our current rugby, Springbok rugby scenario. I mean, their ownership as a squad. That just that idea of having, the bomb squad and having this bench of these phenomenally gifted players who are all going to be very competitive. I mean, you don't become a Springbok because it's okay to lose, And usually the mindset was, if you're not in the starting 15, you must be second best.
Yeah, you're the B team.
You're the B team, because you put the B team guys, the second team guys are on the bench, and the first team guys run onto the field first.
Yeah.
Okay. And to be able to break that mindset to that we are 22 players and we're all as good as each other. And when we come onto this field is about we're actually after that scorecard at the end, the profit, because we want a green.
Points is like profit.
Yeah, points is like profit. And when you come on or when, and whether sometimes you might actually be the water boy because you're not playing this game in the tournament, or your name's Rassi, yeah, or, you know what I mean? It's kind of like you're sitting this particular match out because we need you for the next match, because you're part of a squad and a bigger thing, and whether you're the physio or the second coach, the defense coach, the scrum coach, whatever, this is a collective, and we are here together to put points on the board to make a profit. That mentality, I think as I say, I think Rassi and his broader team have managed to get right. There isn't a first team, there isn't a second team. We're one team. And actually, if you listen to Sio, he says, we're part of the country. The country's our team. We're in this together.
Yeah.
It's the most amazing. Talk about EQ, bringing us back to. The IQ bit is, we want to win. EQ bit is, stronger together. That's the slogan. It's not talking about rugby or whatever. As collectively as a team, a bigger team, and the country, fans in the stadium, we're here to win. We're stronger together. It's the most amazing story. So my response, long response to a short question is, I don't buy it. To me, that is
I'll give you then.
That's a financial department that is actually not being a team player.
Dysfunctional.
It's dysfunctional.
Or disengaged.
Yeah, and they're breaking down team cohesiveness. It's a silo.
And at the end of the day, they're not going to make as much profit as they could have.
No.
And they're not going to get the reward.
Because it doesn't matter to them.
Mm.
Oh, we just reported, guys, you made a loss. But you, business, you're responsible for this. We're not.
And I can show you it on my general ledger. I can show you the loss.
Sorry.
So you're not into that, eh?
No, I'm not into that at all.
I didn't think so.
No.
I was just testing that.
No, I get quite passionate about that.
No, that's good though.
Because I think that's companies that win are the ones that are like our Springbok squad.
And what Rassie is just getting back to rugby.
Yeah.
What Rassie did well to get this momentum every week, if you think of Bongi and Malcolm Marx, every week it was swapping who was starting and who was, or it would go for 3 weeks and then it wasn't like it was always this person, Bongi starting, Malcolm Marx came on. He mixed it up the whole time. You never knew who, and it didn't, after a while, it didn't really matter who was starting and who was on that bomb squad.
So I was watching, the program of them winning the second World Cup, so Chasing the Sun 2.
Mm.
And Rassie makes this comment in one of the open forums that's been filmed. He says, you've got to believe that our competitors are also studying us to try and find a weakness. He says, but we're impossible to understand. He says, because we keep on changing what we do and who is in what position. Because it was about the World Cup, and they were studying how were they going to beat France, which at the time was ostensibly the best team in the world, playing at home in Paris, with their World Cup. I mean, France should have won. And the Springboks beat them, and it's because they managed to figure out a weakness in the French side, and they went and exploited it. And, it was one point, but the point is, it was very deliberately done in terms of how to exploit that particular weakness. So strategically, the analysis was very, very clever. But just that comment about, well, we continually are changing, and because we bring all of our players in to do different things, just makes them so unpredictable and difficult to analyze and difficult to play against.
Can we apply that to FP&A in business? In business, let's talk corporate business.
Yeah.
You've got multiple divisions. Some companies move those finance directors around, they rotate them around all the divisions. Others, you've got the same person for 20 years. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I've noticed that. And I actually think there's value in moving.
Well, yeah. That's right.
Because I think, at the beginning of our discussion, I was talking about how do you change perspective? How do you create that ability to think? Or when we're facilitating, I came in, I could facilitate at your organization because I knew I've got fresh eyes. I can ask questions about, well, that doesn't make sense. I think moving leaders around in an organization can add a huge amount of value, because they spot things where, things have been allowed to sort of, become a bit easy.
You could get complacent, I suppose.
Yeah, it stops complacency. It also means you look at something and look at it with fresh eyes and say, you know what, if we tweak it like this and tweak it like that, suddenly it's a whole lot better. But equally, where you've come from, somebody else is doing the same from what you thought was so good. And the fact of the matter is that if we can get our eyes open for us, and often we talk about limiting assumptions. What are each one of us assuming that actually limits us?
Blind spots.
And we always have that. All of us have got it. So how can that be highlighted? And I think moving leadership around can do that.
One of my clients, I think they move their FDs, financial directors, every 3 years.
Oh, wow.
And what it also does, it's almost like a self-auditing procedure as well, because you don't want to be there and somebody comes in to your position and says, oh, this place was a mess when I got here.
Actually, that's a good point.
And it's the same people, let's say they got 50 of them and they're moving around the world, but it helps to keep the standards up, and you go to the FD forum and you agree on these standards and what you should be doing. You want to make sure that that's been implemented, and you've got someone to check in detail every 3 years. than the internal auditors or external auditors? Or
so I think a lot of the big multinational corporates do.
They do that well.
They do that, and they do that well. That
Yeah.
leadership team, and also I think from them it's also a question of you grooming, and you're sifting for the next who's going to be the next global CEO or CFO or CMO or whatever, and you get people to go and work and all of
everyone's voting as they go.
Yeah,
you're getting that feedback.
But they're learning, and also certain geographies are more taxing than others, and culturally more difficult to handle, and this type of I was doing some work with at a motor manufacturer but a global one, but here in South Africa, and it's quite interesting that the global CEO for the last, I think, sort of 3 iterations, all of those guys spent time working in South Africa, because it's actually quite a difficult and different environment. It's so different to working in Europe, and as a result, or in America. So as a result, they switch these people out in and out of these sort of more, they would say, more challenging environments where culturally it's quite different, in order to kind of make them more robust and to be able to understand and be able to lead the organization more effectively going forward. It's
off topic a little bit, but talking about that, how challenging it is in South Africa. I've got a good friend who studied to be an anaesthetist specialist doctor. He went to London and was in an academic hospital there. And you know how the doctors work, and the professor comes in, and then all the consultants or interns, whatever you call them, they come around and they've got a patient, and it's like not a show and tell, but it's like a demo of what to do in the situation. So he's saying, today we're talking about, I think it was a stabbing, a gunshot wounds.
Yes.
And he says, okay, here's this person, this is what you do in a gunshot wound. And my friend said, no, that's not what you do. It's like cheeky South African.
Yeah.
No, that's not what you do. The professor, okay, who are you, Anthony? How many of these have you done in your life? He says, I've done 3. No, I've done like 300. And he said, okay, and please come and lead the workshop and show us how you would do it.
Because he worked at Baragwana.
Because he had done literally hundreds of these kind of things and treated people.
Yeah.
But that's just an analogy of what the conditions are like here, and speaks to that challenging environment, that things are hard. And
well, I think a good example you see in these like really big companies like a Microsoft in the US. So, and there are a number of them. Indian CEOs, people who grew up in like Bangalore, Mumbai, or whatever, they've gone across to this. They're highly intelligent individuals. They've gone across. They've managed to get into Harvard, Stanford, MIT. They've gone through the Silicon Valley or whatever. They end up in these organizations, and I think their upbringing and their culture, and having lived in an environment that is actually quite chaotic, okay, which is what India is like. It's culturally is so different, okay. Their ability to be able to cut out the noise, make sense of difficult circumstances, lots of information coming through. They can pull the pieces that actually make sense to them and that matter, find prioritization and direction in that, and then lead. I think their training and their upbringing and where they come from gives them something that is so different to somebody who gets brought up in, the suburbs of Connecticut, and where everything's just beautiful and immaculate, and they were driven to school every day in an SUV. I think the difference, I think that's what makes a difference. Problem solving and that noise factor is amazing. To be able to cut out the noise. That's it. And focus on what's actually important. I think their upbringing puts them on a different level.
What else do we do well as finance, and what do we do badly? And then give me 1 or 2 more. And then a question I'm going to come back at the end is, and it's a generalization, a typical finance professional who came to you for coaching, what are the top 3 things you would expect to work on, or we can handle that question now.
The top thing usually, I mean, and this does affect, it's not just finance people, but the top thing that I'm usually find that I've got to work with them on is how do they basically manage the people.
Okay, you mentioned that earlier.
Because they tend to be analytical, very cerebral, task-orientated, think, do, okay? Live in their heads type individuals, and their ability to empathize. Well, firstly, I think very cerebral people probably battle, we talk about EQ, okay, emotional quotient. And it starts with, firstly, how well do you understand yourself, just from an emotional perspective, and what triggers you and what impact, and how you actually present and how you behave. So there's a measure of maturity that's required there. And a lot of people seem to think that they're fairly good at that. I'm not convinced, and I think the more analytical and the more you are sort of in your head, and the people I've been coaching, it would suggest almost otherwise, that actually we all have a lot to learn in that space. But I think the more of a thinker you are, the less in touch you are with your own emotions. So therefore, one's own reactions and how you behave as a result of certain triggers and inputs and impacts on you is something that I think needs to be understood better if you're going to develop as a leader. Then the next half of that is the whole question of, well, how do you engage with your staff, and are you an empathetic leader? Are you able to understand the emotions and what's impacting your people so that you can lead them effectively?
And can you develop those? Can anyone develop those skills, and how quickly?
These skills can all be developed and be trained, and it's how quickly, I think that's just dependent on the individual and how much effort they're prepared to put into. Because you develop these skills through reflective practice, and if you're prepared to put the work into that and go through the process, then you're going to develop faster than somebody else. Look, some people naturally are able to do this, but they don't tend to be the very cerebral, analytical, introverted types which a lot of, let's say, accountants are. So yes, they can all develop this skill and capability. Okay.
So that's number one. Is that?
Yeah. So I think
that's
probably the big one. The next one is, how do they extract themselves out of just being very operationally focused to becoming more tactical and more strategic in terms of their thinking and what it is that they can deliver to the organization. And when we start to analyze, well, tell me what you're doing in your week or in your month, and what are you doing, you find that actually is very operational. It's very much that sort of transactional stuff of, we need to invoice, we've got to fetch the money, we have to report on it. Okay, and it's all looking backwards stuff. Yes, that's what the business expects of you, but how can you, if you want to shine in this organization, and you want the CEO or the CFO to notice you, if you are a financial manager, then you need to be stepping up to the next level. And how do they do that? So I work with them on that sort of thing. What would the third one be? Probably, it's an interesting, I end up in quite a lot of conversations with people who are finding they're just burning themselves out. They are working themselves to a standstill.
Sure.
So it's almost like balance. It's work-life balance, like a lot of self-regulation, and the finance people, because there's a monthly treadmill, isn't there?
And we all know it's coming, and we expect it to.
Yeah.
It's monthly, and you working late, weekends, or
yes.
To get your Andrew's report out within 3 days.
Yeah, exactly. The deadlines, and then, and following up on all of the queries and complaining customers and this and the next thing. Just that treadmill.
That's a good one.
And you spoke about it earlier, the kind of often the finance function won't spend the money on itself because it needs to be seen to be the one
Thrifty.
that is thrifty.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lead by example.
Lead by example, which is great.
Fair.
But what tends to happen is that you have an incredibly lean department, and then when somebody's ill, or somebody's gone away on maternity leave, or somebody's on leave, or on training, never a good time for training, there's a load shift onto other members of the team, and they
burn out.
They burn out.
Yeah, it's known.
Yeah. So I would say
Well,
those,
that's great.
I
Should we
would say
recap those three again?
EQ, leadership, okay, leadership skills, strategic thinking.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, now I've got it.
And practically, we back to the Burnout, engaging, building models, enabling growth. Is that what you say?
Yeah,
about strategic?
exactly. Exactly that. And then just looking after yourself and your team from a burnout perspective.
Let's get back to number 2, because who runs the strategy process in an organization typically?
Well, I
Because-
think it should be owned by whoever's running the organization. It should be the CEO or the MD
But often
or the divisional head.
But strategy is a disciplined process in its own right. You have to do certain things. We were talking on the way here about follow-up and, just managing projects and getting stuff done. That's where most organizations fall over. But there's a cycle. There's a strategy process. You've got to get SWOT analysis and PESTLE, and you've got to do a whole lot of stuff. There's a process. There's steps that you can put in a process document with swim lanes. Often, is that not an opportunity for the CFO to step in and say, I'll run this, I run budgeting, which is a subset of that strategy. But is there not an opportunity to come in here, let me run the strategy process, and I'll guide you through the steps?
Okay, so let's break the strategy process. I was shown this the other day, and so I can't take credit for the simplicity of the model. But if we just look at this model, so breaking strategy into three components. The top bit, what's your core strategy, which is it's the market, what product, who we're going to sell to, what do they want, what geography we're going to go in, what are we going to charge, etc. So there's a core strategy of what you're about as an organization and your ambition.
Your core.
The second piece is basically your strategic capabilities. So what do you need here in order to deliver on that? So plant, machinery, people, systems, whatever, offices, etc. So that capability, which of course all costs money.
And it's normally project driven.
And it's investment and whatever. And then you get down to this bit, which is now strategic execution. So there's the execution bit. So this is now when you're getting into the detail of we actually need a plan, and we need a business case, and then we need to monitor that, and we need to evaluate it, and we need to, because the understanding of this and the driving of that. So now I bring in a question, where can finance be involved? Well, they absolutely need to be involved at the top bit.
Especially on the margins and the cash.
Yes, and helping with the modeling around, the market research and which products we're going to sell to where and what we could potentially get. Because, you always love it. There are 60 million people in South Africa and they all need, they all need a cell phone. So, and let's give them 2. So, and it's kind of, you get these big numbers, okay, and then the kind of who's going to sort of bring this down to some sort of measure of practicality and challenging the assumptions and all of that kind of stuff. On the capability things, well, that all costs money. So that needs to be figured out, and finance can absolutely be involved in understanding, okay, what can we afford? Where should we be strategically putting in the capability in order to deliver on this thing? And then helping with those business cases and the ongoing monitoring of the actual strategy execution. And if they're involved through all of that,
they put themselves in another league.
Particularly at this bottom piece, where the discussion at the the month-end sort of exco meeting is not about what happened last month, but it's also about on our 3 strategic things that we're doing this year, this is how we're tracking, this is what our worm looks like, this is where we're falling behind, this is where things are going the right way or the wrong way. It kind of just helps everybody focus their attention. So it's project accounting. It's that sort of
Yeah. But finance could wrap this whole thing up and say to the CEO, because the CEO is obviously busy, and let me run this. I'll organize a workshop. You just organize the workshop, organize the schedule, facilitate it. Then you're driving it.
Yeah.
You're asking the questions. You're driving. I think it's a powerful opportunity for this community to run it. They don't have to hijack it. It's make it work.
100%.
When we've done the workshop, here's all the actions. Look, it's in the schedules, in this plan. These are numbers. This is what we agreed. We're following up. This is the cadence. It's a process, right?
Correct.
You need systems for that. You need portfolio management systems. You need all that kind of stuff.
But then you see the finance function is very much helping run the organization, which is getting back to that they're part of the team. They're on the pitch.
Now, the company we came from, Nampak, the HR, it was back in the day of, what was it, all the disruption in the 90s.
Yes.
A lot of strikes and bargaining and unions and all that.
So industrial relations was huge.
And those people rose up, I can name a few, but they rose up, they ran strategy because it was all driven by that stuff. And the business kind of just tagged along, and they became the CEO and the Rex and those guys. I mean, they led from an HR perspective. And when it came to strategy, they were talking about vision and objectives and balanced scorecards, and it wasn't us in finance. We weren't doing that. We were crunching the numbers, playing with Spider-Man. But it just shows you, if someone is relevant in a context, there's an opportunity that any department could run. We've been in businesses where the IT department took on that agenda and set the pace and strategy, and people would throw stones and why is IT doing this? But there's a gap there in any business. My belief is because there's a process there that no one really takes ownership for and does it properly. Yes, we get to the boss part, we have the cokies and all of that, but the follow through and the modeling and the delivery and the reporting off the back of the strategy, there's a gap there.
And finance is so well positioned.
We're normally the two I see in any business.
Exactly. They are so well positioned to be that glue.
Yeah.
They really can be. So break down the silos and actually be an enabler of processes across the organizational value chain. No, massively. But it takes leadership and a desire and to be future focused.
Yeah. Andrew, I think that's been a brilliant chat. Thank you for coming on. I don't know, we've said a lot, and obviously we've got a long form, and we need to just see in the notes if we can get the key points. I mean, there's been so many nuggets of gold that I think we've uncovered from a leadership perspective and being practical. And so thank you for your participation and your preparation, and just, us tapping into what it means in leadership for finance people.
Yeah, Roger, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been terrific chatting to you and to just explore all of these different things. And yes, let's hope it can add some value to whoever's going to watch this.
And we'll come back. We could actually run a podcast on many of those topics. It's probably another five podcasts, and hopefully we'll get you back to do that. All right, so that was part 3. That was the final session, and the three nuggets I got is that driver-based models turn forecasting from guesswork into actionable insights. That was the first thing I wrote down. And then finance teams that understand operations and challenge assumptions become invaluable to your business. And then the third one was that future-ready finance professionals focus on EQ, strategic thinking, and very important, avoiding burnout. That was quite a nice little thing he brought, and he recognized that finance professionals often have burnout because of these hectic month ends, and we just keep going. So that was also a great little nugget. So this wraps up my conversation. It was in all, it was a 1.5 hour conversation I had with Andrew, and I'm going to bring him back for future episodes on leadership and strategy, and find ways where we can really just drill into how finance can lead the way in business transformation. So if you've enjoyed this series with Andrew, please hit the like and subscribe buttons and leave a comment. And I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments, and we'll go through those comments and pack them into future episodes. Thanks very much. Cheers.